In this video, I'm going to show you my painted forces for Legions Imperialis, the new epic scale game from Games Workshop, and give you some painting tips on how I got them looking so good. Hello everybody, Peter here, and you're at the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Welcome! Well, I've already done an overview video about Legions Imperialis, the new epic system from Games Workshop, set in the Horus Heresy. I've already talked about that, you know. For some people it's a good decision, for others not so much. But we had some interesting discussion in the last video about some of the topics I raised in that one. Today, however, we're just going to talk about the miniatures. And I want to show them off painted because I thought, well, I could just show you the grey sprues, but that's not very exciting. And also I can give you some tips on how I painted these, because there are a few little traps for the unwary and a few mistakes that I made, even though I painted a lot of epic scale miniatures over the years. So let's get into it. Epic scale miniatures, Legions Imperialis. Okay, so the first thing you're going to have to decide when you get your miniatures off the sprue is, wait, don't take them off the sprue. Yes, when you're painting all these tiny little miniatures, you really don't want to paint them like this, because you won't be able to get into all the little nooks and crannies, I can assure you. So the best way is to keep your infantry models on the sprue when you paint them. Now, for some models, like these command models, for example, you might want to spend a little bit more time on them, and you might find that if you leave them on the sprue and you're painting them, that the one little connector they have with the plastic sprue breaks off or something like that. So the other option is to break off just these models, or cut them off with your clippers, smooth off the bases, and then super glue them to a paddle pop stick. Oh, you don't know what a paddle pop is, do you? No, you didn't grow up in Australia. A paddle pop was a ice cream, so an ice cream stick. So stick them on an ice cream stick or a thin piece of plastic card. I think that's even better because it's a really nice smooth surface. And you can stick them on that, and then it's very easy to paint all the individual little models. Now, here are some of the tanks. As you can see, they're beautifully detailed. There's a real amazing level of detail on the tanks, and they're made up of multiple pieces, so they're a little bit tricky to put together. Here are some of the other Predator tanks. Got this one, and this one comes with a little commander sticking up out of the top. And here we've got some of the Solar Auxilia tanks. Very nice indeed. Now, of course, they've all got different names and everything. I won't go into all that. So, step one, leave them on the sprue. Prime them, and now you've got to decide which colours you're going to paint your miniatures. Now, these little guys from the Solar Auxilia are pretty easy to paint because they're pretty much mostly metal with some black. So what I did with the Solar Auxilia was to paint them first with black Templar contrast paint, which gave them a nice overall black shade. And once that was dry, I dry brushed a metallic silver over the top, so we had an overall silver look. And then I picked out the black detail on the shoes and the gloves and the weapons, again with Black Legion. And the reason I used Black Legion this time was because it has an overall better coverage than Black Templar, so you get a much blacker black. Then you can just easily pick out the little shoulder pads in whatever colour you want. In my case, it was a corn red, highlighted with a lighter red, and they're pretty easy to do. However, with your Space Marines, you're going to have to decide which chapter, and this is where I got myself very confused. To start with, I decided to stick with the Death Guard chapter look, which is really nice, and they have green highlights and a shabty bone undercoat. And the great thing about this particular scheme, and the reason they've used it on the box, is because it contrasts nicely with the dark Solar Auxilia forces. It's a nice light colour scheme, and it's very easy to do because you just undercoat in a shabty bone and then give it a wash with Agrax Earthshade, and you're pretty much done. All the detail comes out really nicely. So I started doing that as my Traitor Legion, and then I saw that someone online had painted Sons of Horus as their Traitor Legion, and I thought, oh, they look pretty good, you know, it's kind of different. And they're not too hard to do. In this case, I used the Sons of Horus green colour, and I washed it with Pterodon turquoise, and then picked out the blacks of the guns and then did a little bit of silver on the guns as well. That was okay. I'm not crazy about it though, I must admit, because it is quite dark, and I really saw, after I'd done these guys as the Sons of Horus, I saw the advantages of doing the light scheme. So I've got another core set worth of miniatures to paint, and I think I'm going to make those back to the Death Guard. And what I did with the tanks that I'd already painted is that I just changed the highlight colour from the green to the Sons of Horus colour. But yeah, I think I'm going to go back to Death Guard. And then one day I might repaint these ones, or I might just say, hey, look, there's a little contingent of Sons of Horus figures fighting with the Death Guard. There's nothing wrong with that, surely. I mean, someone might point out some reason in the fluff that the Sons of Horus and the Death Guard don't get on and they never fight together, but who cares? I don't care. Not at all. So, sit down and think about what colours you want, especially for your Traitor Legion or your Loyalist Legion if you're painting them as Loyalists, because you don't want to change your mind later like I did. Now we come to the Titans. There are 2 Warlord Titans, as you can see, and I've totally cheated here. These aren't the Warlord Titans that came in the box set. These are my Adeptus Titanicus ones, because I haven't had time to paint the ones in the set. They're exactly the same. There's only a couple of differences. One is that the base on the Adeptus Titanicus base is thicker, and you get a thinner base in Legions Imperialis. The other is that you get a different selection of weapons. Now, I've magnetized all of these, as you can see. So I've magnetized the weapons, so I can change them around to different types of weapons. There's a brand new set of weapons in the Legions Imperialis set. Here they are, totally different weapons. So I have to paint those up, because there's some nice weapons here. There's a harpoon, grapnel. These are using the weapons from Adeptus Titanicus. And of course, as you can see, they're not matching colour schemes as well. At this moment, I don't really care, because I just want to get them on the table and start playing the game. But later on, I've got to come up with a way of justifying how some of these colour schemes go with these colour schemes. I don't know. Now, do these colour schemes go together? Not really, but they still look pretty good together. I think that's pretty cool. You know, I'm not too worried about that. These ones go together a lot better, because you can see there's sort of the blue-grey accents. I think that works pretty well. So that's working well for the Solar Auxilia. But yeah, I've gone for general black and red kind of corn colours for the Adeptus Titanicus Chaos Warhounds. And my Traitor Legion doesn't really go with that. Does the Sons of Horus go with it? Yeah, a little bit better. So actually, maybe that's a decider. Maybe I should just stick with Sons of Horus. It's decisions. It's really hard to decide. I've always found it really, really difficult to decide what colours to paint my Space Marines. And eventually I went totally traditional and went for the Ultramarines, just because I thought, well, if they're going to be Space Marines, they might as well be absolutely classic Space Marines. So my Warhammer 40k ones are just Ultramarines. Anyway, now I must tell you, I spent a lot of time painting these, and here we go. I've got to confess, I hate painting epic scale miniatures. It is a chore. Yep, unfortunately. Now, some of you may love it. It's up to the individual, but personally, I hate doing it. They're just that level where they're so small, you don't want to spend too much time on them, but also you want to spend a little bit of effort on them, because otherwise they look really crap. So it's, and also these are slightly larger than the original epic figures. So there is, you know, a little bit of detail in there, and they come up nicely if you put a little bit more effort in them. But, it's boring painting all those tiny little guys who are all exactly the same. I mean, basically, you just totally batch paint. You've got to go through and say, right, I'm going to do this stroke to paint the gun black. Blip, 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 and go through them all. It's the only way to do it quickly. But it is pretty tedious. I don't enjoy doing it. Now, with the bases, I did all the bases separately, and I just basically painted them a grey colour with a little bit of sort of rough, scrabbly dry brushing over the top to highlight it a bit. And then I washed them with Agrax Earthshade to give them a sort of slight brown texture as well. And also it fills in the detail on the bases and makes that come out nicely. And black around the edges, of course, which is traditional. When you're painting your infantry figures, make sure to use the same grey on the little bases that each figure has. They don't plug into the base or anything like that. They actually have a little bit of a moulded base that they're sitting on that you're going to glue onto the base. So remember to paint that as well so they blend into the base. Now when I was gluing them on, I used super glue, but what I did was I had a little bit of plastic card and I put a bit of super glue on the plastic card, just a thin layer, and then I'd take the individual figures and I'd just dip the bottom of their base into that and then pop them on the base. And that way there wasn't too much sort of spread on the base when I put it on, but I did have to do a little bit of retouching with grey as well. And then I did a little bit more Agrax Earthshade over the top of that to retouch, because with super glue you do get that sort of bloom of white sometimes when it dries if it goes beyond the edges of the base. So there's lots of fiddly little details and things to do here. It's kind of tricky. They look great as a en masse at the end. They look really good. You can see the details in these walkers are fantastic. These sort of Ogren troops are really nice. It's actually surprising, because of the problems with injection moulding, you still can't get those undercuts or anything like that. So there are places where there's quite a significant kind of spread to the detail. So if you see these guys wielding axes, there's a big sort of flat bit at the top. And where he's holding the axe like this, there should be a gap in here, but there can't be because of injection moulding. So it's sort of flat across there. But the thing with epic scale that you have to remember is that you don't look at these guys too closely. You're not studying them this close when you play a game. They're way down there on the tabletop. They're really, really tiny. The whole effect is one of en masse, and they look great when there's lots of them all going to war, but you're not looking at them individually. So don't obsess too much about the detail is my advice. In fact, what you want to do is spend the effort on your Titans, because they're the absolute features of this game. They look fantastic painted up, and they're nice big scale in comparison. So there you go, a few little tips on how to paint Legions Imperialis. The next thing I'm going to do is get this game to the table, and after that I'm going to tell you what I think of it, how it plays, how much I enjoyed it, my personal opinion, and hopefully also one day we'll get a battle report going as well. I've already bought one extra box of rhinos to go with my Space Marines, just because I want to give them a little bit more oomph. They're about, they're almost 100 points behind the Solar Auxilia, so I just thought a few rhinos would be good as well. I don't know if they're necessary, but I thought I'd throw those in. I want to paint up the other box worth as well. Ugh, really not looking forward to that. It's going to be a chore. But in the end, we will have a decent sized army of about 1,000 points each, including one warhound on each side. So I think that's enough to get started. Now, as I mentioned, the book recommends about 3,000, 3,500 points for, your typical game. So it's going to be a long time before I get to that point value. And I'm a little bit worried about the future of Legions Imperialis because simply of the price. The extra models are very expensive down here in New Zealand, and they're probably expensive everywhere else. That little box of rhinos I bought was like $80-something here. I've got, as I said, I'm very lucky to have 2 box sets worth of the core stuff, but even that is only 1,000 points a side. So tripling that, I can't imagine how I can do that affordably. So if you want to get into this game, be prepared. It's going to be a bit of a kicker to the wallet. In much the same way I think that Adeptus Titanicus was. It was a very expensive game. They're specialist games, these ones, and unfortunately Games Workshop priced them accordingly. Anyway, we'll see what kind of game we can get together with 1,000 points aside, and hopefully I'll film it for your entertainment. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. I hope you found this informative. Any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. Always here to chat. You just can contact me through the comments or any number of other social media channels that I'm on. Talking about social media, please remember that I'm on heaps of these days. So just search for the Esoteric Order of Gamers on the social media platform of your choice, and I'm sure I'll be there. The only one I'm not on is TikTok, I think. So Mastodon, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter. Facebook. Take your pick. And of course, if you go to the website at orderofgamers.com, there's a link to our exclusive Discord channel as well, which is just for Esoteric Order of Gamers people. And there's a great community of people there who are showing off their miniatures and talking about games and having a great time. So join in. I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Good gaming.